Let's talk about non-monogamous unicorns today. I've come in the mood, I've dressed for the occasion. There is a web series called Unicornland based off of a real woman's experience with a lot of different couples. We're going to take a look at it today. But first, hello, I'm Genevieve. I'm non-monogamous and polyamorous for 12 years. I do long-form videos and resources here, short-form videos and resources here. I have a second YouTube channel called Chill Polyamory 2, TOO, and that's where I do unscripted question and answers on non-monogamy. I have a 6-year archive of polyamorous resources on patreon.com/chillpolyamory. That's also where I offer pen pals and one-on-one chats. But on this channel, we have fun. I take a look at non-monogamy in film and TV. What do they do well? What's messy and they get wrong? In my opinion, let's get into it. If the term unicorn is new for you in the non-monogamous context, it's basically an individual that a couple or a trio is hunting for. They are looking to meet a person together. And they're called unicorns not only because it's this sort of like magical fantasy that doesn't always translate to reality, but also the incredible rareness of meeting one person who has chemistry with everybody involved. Unicornland is an 8-episode web series from 2017 that chronicles one woman's adventures playing with couples. So this web series is not about polyamorous unicorn hunting, which is a hot topic maybe for another day. That's when a couple is dating an individual to try and fall in love and have a triad. I have plenty of reels and TikToks and long-form question and answer on my second channel if you want to get into my thoughts on that. This web series, Unicornland, is entirely about threesomes, hookups, playing only. It is a lot closer to swinging than it would be to polyamory. Our main character, Annie, is a divorcee, now feeling free from her terrible marriage, and she wants to go on new, exciting adventures to build her confidence. The series gives 8 very different examples of how threesomes can play out, so today I'm going to be rating them. Ranging from how realistic it feels to whether it's like satire or parody, as well ranging to how cool I think they are being to how uncool their practice is. This is all entirely my opinion. I encourage you to disagree with me in the comments because the engagement helps a tiny channel trying to grow. Like and subscribe. Okay, let's get into it. Episode 1, Julianne and Ethan.
What do you like?
Oh. I like everything.
Tell us more.
Tell us how.
Is it just me or do they feel like vampires? Like I'm waiting for the fangs to come out, right? Because like they're doing this bit. They're like, I'm sexy, I'm mysterious. Okay, it's a fantasy, I get that. But they are all about consuming her. They just want to have interest in her and learn about her so they can eat it. They kiss her right away, which I don't like. That would be a big yellow flag, if not a red flag for me. There's these weird long bouts of silence, interrupted by sudden escalations. And Ethan especially has a very weird energy about him. And very objectifying. Like she talks about herself for a half of a second, and then they interrupt her and they change the conversation again, right? Because she's not a person to them in this moment. She is a facilitator of a fun night, of a fantasy.
Touch her.
Is that okay?
She loves attention.
Ethan responds for her. I would have been gone. I ain't lying. I would have been gone.
Can I get a verbal yes?
And Julianne ain't great about it either. Like a kiss is not a verbal yes, girl, you know? But then the bubble pops and Julianne runs in the other room and starts sobbing. She's not okay. She actually doesn't want this.
Oh, God.
She loves to go deep.
One of my notes for this episode was just blah, 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 blah. It's super weird that they kept kissing. Like, that's where it feels a little like parody, right? Of like, would they really start making out again when they hear her sobbing 10 feet away from them? I don't know about that. While Ethan checks on her, Annie is adjusting her clothes. She's obviously still fidgeting and insecure, trying to put out a fake, confident facade. This is the first of many times in the series we will see her do this. It's similar to what Julianne was doing as well. The unhappy couple returns. He tries to keep the fantasy going, driving home how self-serving this is for him.
Look at you two beauties.
Would you stop objectifying her?
I'm excited, baby.
Don't call me baby.
He wants to feel good, and he got a half of a yes from Julianne and then jumped in. And yeah, of course it's going to fall apart because not everybody wants to be there.
I didn't get out of a bad marriage to join yours.
Right? That part. You know, like a threesome ain't gonna fix your marriage. Getting a girlfriend ain't gonna fix your marriage. You know, maybe don't invite someone onto a sinking ship type of deal. So like I said, it's a little over the top, but it's a lot more realistic than some people would want to admit, right? Like how miserable this can get if you're trying to fix a broken relationship. So it definitely does capture the vibe, unfortunately, of an incredibly shitty way to enter non-monogamy. In episode 2, we meet Martha and George. They have clearly done this before. They're comfortable in their own skin. They're still doing the objectifying bit, like they call her a fantasy creature or something.
You're a unicorn.
A beautiful, fascinating woman
Or man.
who deigns to bestow her presence on mortals.
Rare, magical creatures.
Couched in an explanation to Annie of what a unicorn is. It's like she already knows that. You know how in movies when they're like, as you know, here's information, you know, for the audience. It was a bit like that. They walk arm in arm ahead of her. And like, it just feels a little shit. Like, I wouldn't do this if I was meeting a new friend. I would include them. I would include them, right? Let alone someone I'm about to get naked with, you know? Anyway, if we set aside the couple-centric headspace, if we set aside the objectifying of her as like some creature, right? If we set that aside, they actually are pretty experienced and affectionate. But this trio felt a lot more overtly transactional, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like, I think this is how you go about having a transactional hookup. And by the way, when I say transactional, I don't mean spicy service work, you know, that is also an option for couples who want to play with somebody and they want it now. Seek out a spicy service worker. But when it comes to people who are wanting an experience and they seek someone out who also wants an experience, and you just say what that experience you want is, you both go into it agreeing to try to give each other that. And that can be really fun and that can be really lovely. And if you say it out loud, like a lot of times people go in and it's all subtext and they're trying to infer and read between the lines. It's like, just say it and then you'll get it, you know, should be how it goes. So the couple wanted to play with a fantasy creature. They said that out loud, and Annie was into it. All right. Annie wanted to feel sexy and desired, so they said, okay, let's go dress you up. Let's get you to feel sexy in new clothes. Let's shower you with praise so you feel desired. You see what I'm saying? It's like everybody wanted something out of it and they're trying to give it to each other. And as they're in the middle of a sex shop, this felt so wholesome. This felt so cute, you know, and they're a little bit like teacher-student vibes. And we see how Annie, in her eagerness, like made some assumptions of what was okay for her to do. She started touching places that they didn't say they wanted to be touched in, right? And because she crossed some consent lines in this early stage, that made the couple not feel safe playing with her. They're like, if you're already doing this in a public sex shop, like what would you also not ask to do in private in a bedroom, right? Is kind of what I'm getting from this, you know? And so they also have some pretty straightforward and above board bounds on the kind of person they want to play with, you know? And they told her to her face.
Are you brushing me off?
You're very sweet. Just a little
Inexperienced.
So for rating realism, this couple, I've met this couple before, you know, like I've met versions of this couple. Their bounds are clear and realistic. Annie's mistakes are also pretty common for eager people who don't know what they're doing. And I think overall it also went in a good direction. You know, sometimes passing on the threesome is the best move. Episode 3, Shira and Mikal, two hotties on the dance floor. Let's go. So we see Annie's in the club. She's kind of in her head. She's not had a threesome yet, right? Like she rejected the first couple. The second couple rejected her. So she's feeling a little down on her luck. Her friend is trying to root her on.
Stop. I told you not to wear those. Fake it till you make it.
And at this point, you start to see it's a theme. They're doing this on purpose. The character's unsure of herself and faking it. It doesn't really seem to make her feel better. She's moping in a corner, but despite all of that, this still happens.
How's your night going so far?
A really hot, half-naked dude comes up to her. She's feeling a little unsure of herself. She's not really feeling in the mood, you know, so she declines. And he double checks, like, is it because I'm black?
Because I'm black?
No.
honestly, straightforward talker, right? He wanted to know, so he asked it, and saying like, oh, is this the reason you're saying no? It's not? Okay, great. Well, then the invitation stays open. She seems, though, to instantly regret it, reconsiders, and goes back out to see him. On the dance floor is not long, though, before there's another person catching her eye.
What do you think of my girlfriend?
He's also upfront that he's not single, right? And he tells her that right away. And the girlfriend is super hot. Like, it feels like this couple is Annie's fantasy. In the last two, she was the other people's fantasy. I feel like roles are reversed now, right? And he comes up to her and invites her, right? And it's just served up on a platter. A lot of it felt a little too convenient, I'm not saying it's never played out this way in real life. Absolutely, hot people fuck all the time. But I'm just saying, like, because this is scripted, is it wish fulfillment rather than remembering a thing that happened? So like I said, because it was so easy with no issues from start to finish, right? It was a little less on the realistic side for me, but overall, it was cool how straightforward they all were. It seemed like fun. Episode 4, Veronica and Archie. It starts with Annie in the middle of a threesome, right? In this couple's home. And she pretends to climax. It's another case of her acting like she feels secure, hoping to fake her way into an actual fun time. But her sexual partners are not happy she lied to them.
Still felt really good.
Archie felt a little bit like a caricature.
I feel so small. Like the cast-off shell of a rotten mollusk.
He felt a little bit like if you were to draw a cartoon version of a sensitive dude.
Do you think I'd get off on abuse?
And of course they're mocking him, right? They made him a melodramatic, effeminate stereotype, but he's upset he was lied to during sex. Why would the show mock that? And the show also mocks Annie for being too scared to be vulnerable. So which is it? It feels like the creator's trying to tell us it's good to be in touch with your feelings, but there's still a disdain for softness that comes through.
I never come during sex.
So right away, the pair switches to being supportive instead. They bust out all their toys for her to choose from. They want to help her. And from there, they kind of coach her in the room. It was awkward, which was real because sex can be awkward, and she's kind of being babied into real pleasure. And the couple seems to be getting closer to each other, feeling like honored by being able to be in this moment with her. It was pretty lovely, I know too many people who have yet to experience sweet partners like this. And if you haven't, but you're like, oh, that's nice, you absolutely can have it. You absolutely can turn down anybody who's not going to do that for you, right? They should give a shit about you having a nice time. So for the rating, like I said, Archie felt kind of like a mean-spirited parody of a sweet guy, like something you might see, honestly, in a right-wing comedy, if I'm being real, is weird. I do know couples that are this generous, but it is unfortunately not as common as it should be. So I think they linger a little bit more on the line. For the overall treatment of each other, Veronica and Archie were lovely, and good on Annie for sticking through that hard talk and trying new things. Like, yeah, Annie lied, but they moved past it. The main uncool thing was how the show itself turned vulnerability into a punchline. So episode 5, I feel like at this point on is when the series starts to get a little muddy. You'll see what I mean. So episode 5 is Gina and Julio. In the past, Julio had cheated on Gina, and now one of the things they do in bed is like they role play that situation playing out again, except this time Gina is in charge and in control, and she finds that to be healing to pretend that she is catching Julio cheating on her, and then she wins, and then she feels like empowered in that moment. And so it was cool to see people very clear on why they want to do a role play, very transparent about that with the person they're role playing with, like if you're aware that some sort of traumatic moment is in the mix, like that helps to have your play partner know about that, especially if there's like any sensitivities that they can keep in mind to not make it a bad time. But I will say it does not seem like they're totally past it as a couple, They were joking about her hitting him, which I don't think that's funny, That said, they knew exactly what they wanted. They even had a script they wanted to follow. Everybody went over the script multiple times, and Annie agrees. Annie, at this point, is kind of the more experienced one in the room, which is new to her, right? And she's not quite sure what to do with this. She doesn't really feel confident yet, but they are putting on her that she has some knowledge or wisdom to bestow on them. And so it's like this push-pull of like, I don't feel like I'm an expert, but I guess I am.
Just want to make sure you know we're commencing play.
So Annie seems very concerned that Gina will be okay. She's very focused on making sure this is a fun time, especially for Gina, which was all well and good, which was all pretty above board. But then in the middle of the scene, Annie tosses out the script.
We went over the script like 3 fucking times. Are you crazy?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm Team Gina in that moment. You don't have to agree to a script, but you agree to change it together, you know? And even if she wanted it to be spontaneous or a surprise, like she could have planned for that too. She could have said, you know, at some point I'm going to go off script and I'm going to start insulting you. Are you okay with that? And we're not going to script that part. Okay? It felt a little less realistic. Like to have a character so focused on not hurting someone and then flip to do something that could be very hurtful to someone, that felt really not real to me. I don't know. Y'all let me know. You know, maybe that's a kind of person I've not met, thankfully. But it felt weird. I was like, this isn't the same character. So yeah, Annie faking being an expert made her reckless. But instead of the show giving her real consequences for ignoring consent, instead they wrote Gina to be turned on by it. The show tries to play it like Annie knows more and she's actually breaking from the script for Gina's benefit because she knows what will actually make Gina feel empowered. And it wasn't something she could talk with Gina about ahead of time. It had to be a surprise. And I'm like, no. I don't like the message of, you know, just wing it, just freestyle in the middle without talking to anybody and it'll go great. I don't like that. I don't like that moral of the story, you know? And so this kind of thing unfortunately does happen. This time the characters were luckily not hurt by it. But here's where I start to wonder if the show itself is pretending that it knows what it's doing. Okay, episode 6, Samara and Kim. We start out after they've hooked up. All 3 of them are laying in bed.
Can we keep her?
She has potential.
People say playful stuff like this, but it's really got overtones of you're a pet, you're something to be owned, you know? I don't know. They also use some kind of distancing language of like our guest. It's not wrong, but it's like little tiny things. This is how subtle distancing, subtle couple centricity can like pop up is like in these little ways that you're like, I guess on its own, that's not the end of the world, but like it all starts to add up to where you don't totally feel comfortable with the couple, if that makes sense.
Are we being good? Yes, mother. We have rules.
Oh, the whole yes mother thing, like seeing your partner as your rule keeper. It kind of reminds me of in sitcoms when a straight couple, when the husband is like, yes, dear, and rolls the eyes, you know? It's like, so queer couples can do it too. Representation. We can also quietly resent each other and cover it up with a joke.
For play dates, no French kissing.
Why are y'all talking about this after you've already had sex? Like, that ain't the order of operations. What? And so Annie, reasonably so, is like, are there any other rules I should know about? You know, like...
Anything else I should know?
Respect? Common sense?
I hate this answer. There's not such a thing as like common sense that is all mutually shared in a non-monogamous relationship, right? Like people are going to make a lot of assumptions. And if they don't say that out loud with their words, their partner isn't a mind reader. Their partner doesn't know that that's what's expected or that that's what would be upsetting. Like, I don't know. So they're all walking, and then this guy bumps through them, loud and brash and aggressive, and starts saying a bunch of homophobic and sexist things, you know? And so this guy's sort of like how Archie felt a little cartoonish for a sensitive dude. This feels a little cartoonish for, you know, a brash, misogynist bro. It's like, yes, all of those things can and do happen. It's just like... It felt like parody. It felt like all of them squished into one person all in one moment. But this is when an argument breaks out between Kim and Samara. Kim is incredibly jealous and possessive and gets very mean.
You have some kind of problem with me?
Kim's jealous.
Of a straight girl?
straight girl, she just had sex with a couple of lesbians, right? Like, where is the man in the mix? I'm so sorry. The biphobia. And then she frames it like Annie's not a threat because she has sex with men. And like, that's why she's never going to be one of us, you know? So Kim was pretending to be fine, but she's not. The couple's pretended to be fine, but they're not. And now it's all coming out as it always does. Y'all resent each other. Y'all aren't having a good time. This is an old conflict that definitely is not just about this moment, you know. I feel like this couple is a lot more of what you might see circling around in the scenes. People who are very not okay, but they still have a high tolerance for like doing the sexual stuff. But then you see they're actually not okay underneath, you know, and that can be really shitty to, you know, try to navigate. And it's almost worse because it's harder to spot until you're deeper in. And so for the rating, this was too real. I hated how real this felt. The part with the guys made it feel a little more scripted and fake, but it was based on real things. But yeah, this was a mess, kind of hard to watch. This couple is not dealing with things, and they make that everyone else's problem. So episode 7, we're getting into some of the darker stuff. So we're actually going to be talking about SA briefly. If you don't want to hear about that, I totally understand. You can go to this time code right here. The episode also did not give a content warning of their own, which was not appreciated. I could have used one. So episode 7, Masha and Peter, we start with Annie already bound, already in the middle of being tied, and Masha is the one tying her. And they say explicitly that this is Masha's first time in this role. Prior to this, she had only been Peter's sub.
You double the rope back over the wrist.
Immediately no, right? I do not want two people fighting while I am bound, right? And they are in charge. I don't want there to be a power struggle between doms. Like, I could only see this being cool if it was a very on purpose discussed scene where she was like wanting to not be able to get away while mommy and daddy fight. Like, that I think could work, but like, that's clearly not what they did here, right?
She's fine. Now shut up, or I'll gag you.
If it gets too tight,
You'll feel tingles. But I know what I'm doing. I have 10 years of experience getting tied up, so I know the ropes.
It was just a power fight with a clearly insecure and overcompensating, fronting dom. That is dangerous.
Did I miss a spot?
You can't let the ropes cross or it'll cut off circulation.
I know.
You gotta be careful.
I'm in charge now.
No. Immediately no again, right? Like, your ego can get people hurt. And when Annie voices some discomfort, Masha silences her. That is not the time to whip out the ball gag, right? And it's very clear that Annie is like not wanting it, right? She is resisting it, and Masha is pushing forward. You know, none of this has been talked about openly. None of this has been discussed. Then she gets pushed face down into a pillow, dude. Like, she could have not only circulation issues, but breathing issues too. And she can't fucking speak. Like, it's not okay. It's not okay. And you see Peter even trying to intervene, and Masha's ego is like getting in the way of her being able to take a damn note. And so now Annie is suffering as a result of it. This was a very hard scene to watch.
Okay, it's over. It's over.
And this is sometimes how abuse in kink can look, right? Not coming from an evil villain who's breaking consent on purpose, but from an insecure or reckless person who doesn't know what they're doing, but acts like they do. Also, Annie could have easily been like, okay, I'm done with kink forever, and left the community and never looked back. Like, Masha could have really damaged Annie's ability to have kink for the rest of her life. Like, that is also at stake here, is this trust matters. Rating-wise, this was a dark but very, very realistic moment of someone unaware that they're being abusive. And this goes all the way off the uncool spectrum and past it for doing something that could have given Annie PTSD. Okay, so eager to feel better. Let's see what episode 8 has to offer us. This is the final episode in the series, The Sex Party. So I was pleasantly surprised that she wants to go back to a kink setting, right? That last terrible experience didn't ruin the idea of kink for her. And she's greeted by so many friendly, caring faces, right? It's sort of like every cool couple from the entire series happens to be at this play party. It's nice to see them, you know? And so that contrast from the last episode is also very appreciated because both are true. So yeah, so she's here, she wants to connect with people, she's walking throughout the house. But then she sees something that reminds her of what just happened. She starts to have flashbacks and gets overwhelmed, excuses herself, and someone she doesn't know yet, and that person's partner go to check in on her. How are you doing? They wind up sitting with her and staying with her as she calms down.
You don't have to sit here with me. We'll only leave if you want us to.
Do you want us to leave?
No.
This episode kind of brings up mixed feelings, right? Because it's obviously upsetting to relive the upsetting thing with Annie, and she is surrounded by people who can take care of her, even people she doesn't know. Everybody at this party, in this setting, is invested in her feeling good, you know? And so I think it goes back to this entire series is showing variety and range. It's not just pigeonholing, you know, kink good or bad or threesome good or bad. It's like the experiences will be as varied as the people who do them, you know? And so I appreciated seeing that. This felt so similar and looked so similar to a lot of parties I've been to, and everybody there treated her with a lot of love and respect. So it's a very thorny series. It's very prickly. Like they touch on a lot of heavy hitting topics and then don't really go a whole lot deeper than that. They sort of like gesture at an upsetting thing and then move on. And I'm glad you gestured at it. I'm glad you named it and kind of showed what it can look like. But like, you know, I was hungry for something deeper, you know, as for something more getting into the why of it or the how it gets worked through or, you know, but that also wasn't this person's story. She played with a couple and then left. And like sometimes a lot of stories don't have resolution or don't feel like there's a moral to them. And I think that's fair as well. That said, the series just kind of drops you. She had a very upsetting thing happen. We realized she probably has trauma from it. End of series. Like, what are we supposed to take away from this as a whole body of work? Like, did she quit playing with couples after this? Does she want to be monogamous again? Like, will she heal with help from other people, you know, and eventually want to get tied again, you know? Like, ironically, this series kind of took us on this like emotional ride and then just dropped us without aftercare. Like I sat for an hour after it was over just like trying to collect myself and like get my wits about me again. You know, I was like kind of, things don't need to be resolved. Things can be open-ended, but like a series should have an ending. I was just like, I don't know, like they didn't stick the landing in my opinion. Editing Genevieve here, and speaking of endings, I feel like there's something else I wanted to add about why this series didn't really sit right with me in the end. Because obviously the last 2 episodes were jarring like that. There was no closure whatsoever. But beyond that, I feel like the creator didn't finish her thought of how you actually go from insecure to confident. Or maybe didn't know how to do that or fell flat. Like I just feel like the series didn't do what it was trying to do. Because Annie started playing with couples to build her confidence. Like that was the stated goal of the show, and that therefore that's what I was expecting, you know. And in the first episode she does stand up to that couple, which took a lot of courage, so I was expecting to see more of that. But then throughout she's either passive or overcorrecting, you know. Like Veronica and Archie literally led her by the hand into a moment of growth. I would have loved to see a version of that scene where she's the one stopping sex and saying this isn't working for me and can we try something else. Like that would have been confidence building, you know. But then it skips the step of Annie opening up of what she feels insecure about. It skips that vulnerable stage and refuses to acknowledge it and now just tries to double down and power through, right? She acts as if, you know, I'm comfortable in my own skin and I know what I'm doing, when it's very clear that she isn't and doesn't. And that's the overcorrection when she goes to Gina and she takes control of the scene and she seems to be like mimicking what she thinks a confident person might do and bulldozes consent. Instead of the show teaching her that that's not a good thing, it rewards her. So the show treats it as growth. And I'm like, does the show even know what confidence is? The show seems to carry the message that fronting is confidence. Confidence comes from accepting your entire self, including the drawbacks that you want to improve, being able to name those without apology, being able to own them without shame, right? So anyway, I wanted to make sure that that part didn't go unsaid because it really has been lingering with me for days. Anyway, back to the past. I am curious, like, if you relate to any of these episodes in any small way, if you maybe saw yourself on screen, you know, in a way that you're like, oof, whoops, called out, you know, that's okay. Happened to me a few times as well. Anyway, I hope this could be insightful in some way, shape, or form. Hit me up on Patreon at Chill Polyamory, Instagram and TikTok, you know, find me in all the places. And I'm already cooking up a good video for next month, so stay tuned. Hope you have a great rest of your day. See you later. Bye.